Hey everybody, I'm Greg from Bell's Backyard. This morning we're going to be planting some strawberry plants. Do you know about 50% of strawberry plants are going to fail just because of a few common mistakes? And from what I'm hearing from some of the experts, it's even going to be harder to do that, not only this year, but from the years going forward. We're going to kind of have to take a look at the way we grow strawberries. You organic farmers that are out there, it's even going to be harder. So we're going to cover some of that towards the end of the video, the new threat that's out there and how we're going to need to take care of that so that we can have a productive season. But let's go ahead and jump right into this video. Now, one of the first mistakes that growers make, me included, is not amending the soil properly before you plant your plants. Now, strawberries want to have a very good drained soil, which means that they want to be moist but not wet. Now, one of the ways that you can check for that is to do a bucket test. Now, you've seen me do it in some of my other videos when I was reclaiming some of this clay soil that I have out here for some of my other garden beds. But what you can do is that bucket test. You're going to take a hole the size of a 5-gallon bucket and you're going to make it about half as deep. Now, once you dig that hole, you're going to fill it up with water and just let it set overnight so that you can dampen the soil up a little bit. The next thing you want to do in the morning, come back up, fill the hole all the way up again, and then start timing it. If it drains out between 3 to 4 minutes, you've got enough drainage into the soil and your plants are going to be just fine. If it stays in there a little bit longer than that, you need to amend your soil. If it drains out faster than that, it means that the water's not going to remain in the soil, the roots aren't going to get the nutrients that they need, and they're going to struggle too. So you need to amend your soil. Now, how do you do that? If it's going to be a sandy soil, I would put in peat moss. Peat moss has a tendency to retain a lot more moisture than you're going to have with your other type of amendments. Now, the other side, if you're going to have a clay soil or something that's not draining as fast, I use a compost. Now, the compost that I added into this garden bed behind me for the strawberries this year is a mixture between a compost and also aged cow manure, so it brought some nutrients into the soil. What you want to do is make sure that even if you have good soil drainage, you still want to amend the soil. I do recommend using the aged cow manure, so that way it provides the nutrients that these strawberry plants are going to need. Now, we're planting in the fall, so they're not going to need a whole lot of nutrients. What we do want them to do is establish their roots, which we're going to talk about here in just a minute. Site location for a strawberry plant is critical. They do want 6 to 8 hours of sunlight. Now, be aware when you plant your strawberries and you select your site to make sure that they're going to get that 6 to 8 hours of sun, not only in the fall where we're planting now, but also in the spring and the summer. As the sun's going to continue to move from the south to the north as it gets warmer, just be aware of that and making sure that they're going to be able to get 6 to 8 hours of sunlight through the entire growing season. Planting too early or too late. Strawberry plants love to be planted between 50 to 80 degrees. Now, the sweet spot for the fall planting like we're doing right now is between 60 to 70 degrees. Now, right now it's 71 degrees, my soil temperature is, but I need to get my plugs in because I just received them. I do have a cold front coming through, so I think the soil temps are going to come down and will remain low enough for them to start to establish themselves effectively in the fall. If you're going to be doing it in the springtime, the best time to plant is when the soil temps are above 50 degrees and you know that it's going to continue to warm up. Anything below that, your root development is going to slow down and you're not going to have a productive season. Spacing. Now, strawberry plants, when you plant them initially, the little plugs, they're going to look incredibly small to you, but they are going to send out runners and they are going to expand and grow. Now, they want to have about 12 to 18 inches to be able to expand to have a productive season. Now, you can see what I did here, just because I'm kind of anal retentive. I went ahead and put in my little pots exactly where I'm going to be planting my plants so that I know that I'm going to have the proper spacing. Now, while we're talking about strawberry plugs, let's go ahead and take a look at what I just got in. So I got my plugs this year from Haas Tools. Now, we'll talk about it at the end of this video of what's going on with the plug growers and how it's going to be impacting the rest of us through this year. Now, I just opened these guys up. It's the first time that I've seen them. I mean, the plugs look pretty well. Now, I did order 2 other types of strawberry plants, but because of what we're going to talk about and the disease that's hitting some of our plug growers, they did have to swap them out for me. They sent me an email and they also sent me some instructions and some directions. But if you look at the strawberry plugs that they sent, these are actually, they look pretty good. There's a well-established root system to them. There's not a lot of dead plants. Now, there are some that are showing just a little bit of a leaf spot, but I don't think that's really a leaf spot. I just think that's just damaged in shipping and growing. So I think these guys are going to be just fine. Now the ones that we're going to be growing, these are called the Camarosa. They are pretty resistant to the fungus that we're going to be talking about just a little bit later. But let's go ahead and get these guys right into the ground. Planting too shallow or planting too deep. If I plant too shallow, these roots aren't going to be able to drive down deep enough in order for it to establish where it can pick up the nutrients that it needs when it really kicks off in the springtime. Now, if I plant too deep, there's something here called the crown on a strawberry plant, and it's actually right there. Now, the crown is where the leaves come together. You don't want to plant the plant deeper than the base of the crown. Now, if I plant it too deep, what's going to happen is dirt is going to collect in there, your mulch or your compost is going to get in there, it's going to hold moisture, and it's going to allow it to develop fungus, which is going to put stress onto the plant. Let's go ahead and get these guys into the ground. While we're getting these planted, let's talk about the next mistake most strawberry growers make, and that's watering. Now, strawberry plants, like we said, need about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of water a week. One thing we do not want to do, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, is overhead watering, and now more than ever. So if you are just a backyard grower and you're not going to put in a drip irrigation system, or you're not going to put down drip tape, what you can use is going to be a soaker hose. Instead of thinking that you're going to just put your sprinkler and water them overhead, that's going to create a whole bunch of issues as far as the fungus goes for strawberry plants. Just get you some soaker hose, lay it out so that you can string it around the strawberry plants, and then once a week provide about an inch to 1.5 inches worth of water, and your plants are going to be just fine. Now, for those of you that are growing in containers, you plant them the exact same way. This is some containers that I got. They were actually went on sale for about 50% off when it was the end of the gardening season, and I picked up. I've got about 15 or 20 of these at the house now. So you're still going to plant them the same way. We're just going to take it, we're going to put that plug right in there, but we're not going to plant any deeper than the crown. Now, we want to get them 12 inches apart, and I know this seems like it's a massive waste, but we're going to have that big gap in between. So I'm only going to plant 2 strawberry plants for this entire pot, and we'll carry these up to the house and we'll just kind of grow them from there, just because 1, strawberry plants are really pretty when the fruit comes in, and 2, it kind of gives me an idea of how the plants are doing out here in the farm. There we go. We're going to put these 2 in. Mulch. They call them strawberry plants for a reason. Now, it doesn't really matter which kind of straw you're going to be using. Just make sure that you use it. Don't use hay, because hay actually has seeds from weeds in it, and that's going to create all kinds of issues. You don't want to have weed competition as the strawberry plants start growing in the fall. Now, I'm blessed with having a pretty good acreage that has some really nice pine trees, and I am going to be using that. Other people say that they just want to use other types of straw because it's more hollow, and that hollow acts as a greater insulation for the winter time. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to cover the bed, leaving about 2 to 3 inches around the strawberry plants themselves until they go dormant and until it gets cold. Once it gets colder, the thought of frost is coming through, then we're going to cover up the plants completely because they're dormant, and then we're just going to let them set all winter long so they can get an early start in the spring. But just proper companion planting for your strawberries. With companion planting, make sure that we're planting the right plants. Now, we just got our strawberry plants in. It's fall time. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of companion plants that you want to grow, but there's still some that you can still put in there. With that 18-inch spacing that we have, we can still put in some lettuce and some kale and be able to grow those, and they're going to grow for the next 30-45 days, and they'll be done. That way, when the springtime comes up, we'll be ready to go. The strawberries can take over. Another thing that you can plant in the fall time with your strawberries is going to be garlic. Now, if you haven't seen my garlic video, I'm going to go ahead and post the link to that at the very end. The garlic that you want to put in, if you're planting garlic to be able to harvest, don't plant them directly with your strawberries. The reason why is the last 2 weeks of planting garlic, you want to make sure that you don't water them. Well, that's the exact same time the strawberries are going to need a lot of water, because it's going to be in that May, June time frame for most of us. So you're going to get a squishy, moldy headed garlic. So you can plant those in a row separate like I'm going to do here, but I'm also going to intersperse them into my plants. Now, the garlic cloves that I'm going to use are the smaller garlic cloves. Those are the ones that I don't anticipate being able to use in the kitchen or be able to preserve, because they're going to produce a smaller head. But garlic is going to provide that sulfur smell that's going to repel my aphids and my white flies. So I think I'm going to go ahead and plant my garlic here in the next week or two. One of the things that you want to do is make sure that you're planting your garlic a little bit later, because garlic likes to grow when the soil temps are around 50 degrees. So if you're planting at 60, wait for the soil temp to drop in, and then just stick in a couple cloves of garlic. Now, when your strawberry plants start growing in the spring, the companion plants that you want to put in are going to be your thyme, your basil, and your sage. Now, one thing that you want to make sure that you're doing with your sage, and it can grow up to 2 to 3 feet tall, your strawberry plants are going to be very small. So you want to plant them on the northern side of your plants. That way they're not getting shaded out. Just like we talked about earlier, you want to have 6 to 8 hours of good sun for your strawberry plants to be productive. Next, you also want to plant marigolds. Now, marigolds are incredibly good at repelling aphids, whiteflies, and root knot nematodes. So you want to go ahead and get those into the ground, usually when the soil temp's around 60, 65 degrees, and you're going to have all the companion plants that you're going to need. Okay, now it's time for the heart-to-heart and some of the things that we're going to need to discuss. And it's about how we're going to be growing strawberries from here going forward. Now, there has been a lot of scare tactics that I've heard out there, and a lot of people that are just spreading gloom and doom about strawberry crops. There is some issues that are out there. There is a virus that started back in, I believe, 2009 in Florida, and I can't pronounce it, but I'll put the name of it right down here. But it is a very aggressive fungus. Now, it does the same thing as the other funguses do the strawberries are prone to. This happens to be something that they don't have a hybrid plant for, or they've developed a plant that's resistant to it. They also are not quite sure how to treat it, as aggressive as this thing is. So what happened was, according to the studies, it started in South Florida, and then it actually got up to where they're growing the tips for the plugs for the strawberries, all the way up into Canada, and it's spread out through the entire East Coast now. A lot of strawberry plug growers have actually discontinued growing strawberries completely this year because as aggressive as this has been. Now, the University of Georgia did a study in the agriculture department up there. Although I'm an Alabama fan, roll tide. But the University of Georgia did say that just go ahead and consider that every single one of your plants is going to have this already in it, and make sure that you're aggressive with it. So as bad as this sounds, I'm not really buying into the gloom and doom. I'm just kind of treating it like I know it's a bad flu season coming, and I'm going to take the precautions that I need, and hopefully I don't get sick. So I did take the strawberry plugs. Now, Haas Tools did send them to me like I talked about, but he did a very, very nice letter to everybody that he sent his plugs to with kind of the way that we should be treating our strawberries this year. Now, the way that we're going to treat them, strawberry plants are very susceptible to roof spot and fruit rot. They always have been, and they always will be. But this happens to be a little more aggressive. Now, the directions that Greg from Haas Tools sent me is what I'm going to actually follow this year. It's going to be a little more aggressive than I've done in the past, and it's also something, well, we're just not going to be able to use organic anymore, at least for our strawberries, and we're going to try to limit the amount of synthetic fungicides as we can, but I still want to be able to produce the strawberries in my backyard because I know at least it's going to be healthier than what I'm going to get out of a grocery store. Now, the reason why I'm saying that, normally we're just going to treat with copper aldehyde, neem oil, and BT, and that's going to be our treatment for the majority of the plants that we use out here. Also a spinoside that we can use when we see the bugs and insects and predators directly. But this year, because of the honesty of Greg at Haas Tools and Mama Haas, of how they said there is an issue with the plants, the 2 strawberry plants that I did order, they had an issue with them. They swapped out the strawberries. They gave me the ones that they said were the most resistant to this particular fungus that's going to be coming through the East Coast for this year. So the way that we're going to be treating this, and this is the letter that he sent me, I really think that it goes with the credibility of a company when you can say, hey, there's going to be a problem, and this is how we're going to have to deal with it. So I'm going to trust him for this year on exactly how I'm going to be treating my strawberries in order for me to have a good harvest at the end of the year, so I'm not battling that new fungus. Now the way we're going to do it is it's going to be 1 ounce that we're going to use vegetable, fruit, flower, and ornamental from him. And that's going to be 1 ounce per gallon every 7 to 14 days until the fruit sets. And then after that, we're going to discontinue the use. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to apply a copper fungicide, which we use here at the garden all the time. And we're going to apply 3/4 of an ounce per gallon of water. And we're going to do that also every 7 to 10 days. And then also we're going to use his garden floss. And that's going to be 3/4 of an ounce per gallon every 20 days. We're going to be using his garden floss, and that's 3/4 per gallon. Start spraying at 20 days after we planted them, which is, I'm going to mark my calendar now, and I'm going to spray every 15 to 30 days up until the harvest. Now, 2 of those are not organic certified, but without using those, I think that there's going to be a massive issue. It's the way that I'm going to do it. Now, if you think that you can get through it without going with a synthetic type fungicide, please let me know. Leave the comments down in the section below, and also kind of give us feedback on the results of how you're dealing with it, if you have it, and if your treatment is successful. I'm going to follow Greg. I'm going to follow his instructions. I know it sounds like it's a little complicated, but if we just mark it into the calendars, get the material that we need ahead of time, and just have a schedule. I'm going to be spraying on Mondays and on Fridays. That way I know that I'm going to be staying on schedule to help combat this fungus that's going to come in, and probably we're going to have to be dealing with it sometime this year. Now, this does sound like a lot of doom and gloom, and it is going to be a little extra work for us in the backyard, but one of the reasons why we grow our plants is we want to be able to control our plants to make them as healthy as they possibly can, not having to buy it from a supplier that we don't know who they are. I don't even know what strawberry pricing is going to be. I know that if I do it in my garden and I try to be as aggressive and successful as I can, I know I'm going to be producing a fruit that I know exactly what went into it, and also I know that where it came from. So I'm going to go ahead and take the risk. I'm going to go ahead and grow strawberries this year. I hope you do too. That's your decision, but what I want you to do is leave some comments in the section below. Are you going to be growing strawberries this year? Have you heard of this in the past? What questions do you have? If you like what you saw so far, just go ahead and leave comments down in the section below. Also subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate it. It helps us out an awful lot here at the farm. But I'm Greg from Bell's Backyard, and I'll see you on the next video.